Welcome, gamers, to this week's episode of Last Call Gaming. We're episode number 174. Today is August 1st. My name is Craig Perales. Joining me, as always, Mandrew Montemayor. Now, episode's a little later than normal, just because if you're looking at the thumbnail, our main thing that we wanted to talk about, I want to make sure Andrew and I both had enough time to watch every episode, and we'll get to that in a second. And I want to make sure there was enough time that if anybody was watching this, and we bring up spoilers and things like that, they have enough time to watch it as well. So that is why the episode is a tad bit late. But with that being said, sir, I haven't seen you since, last week? We got to start getting on this page where it's more than once a week I see you.
Yeah, even so, I feel like it's been... I felt like I saw you last week, but I think it's been like 2 weeks.
I could have sworn, but I think because we were playing, and again, one of the other things we'll talk about, we've been playing so much of the game together, like a whole conversation that we had that I thought was here was like completely in a headset.
Yeah, I was thinking too, I was like, I could have swore I saw him here. That's why I thought I left my notebook here that I don't know where it's at, so.
What do you think happened to that thing?
I don't know, it's gone, baby. Solid.
Let's see, because I was hoping one day when you retire, I could keep it with my other notebooks that I have retired.
I really want to. When I get home, it's bugging me, because I looked this morning, but when I get home, I'm going to have to tear my house apart and find
I know, it's going to be, like when you leave in the future, you're going to start having a little checklist, so I make sure that my baby leaves with all his hat, his keys, and his notebook.
I checked my backpack, my Castlevania backpack that matches his hat.
Show on the side, too, because I didn't notice that it had, like, the...
Oh, yeah, the moon and the bats. Thank you, babe. She got this for me. I went and I was like, oh, cool, I found my notebook, but it was the purple one that we were using for other, like, that aren't main episodes. I'm like, well, that's not it. And I just threw it back in there, even though it's the exact same book. But
nice. So, guys, thank you for joining us today. If you guys are watching the YouTube version of the show, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that notification bell. If you guys are interested in following us on any of our social media, hit our Linktree link, which is in the description of the YouTube video. If you guys are listening to the audio-only version of this podcast, you can find us on any of the big podcasts out there, your podcast platform of choice. So, before we dive into our main topics, Andrew and I like to do, what are you up to? We take a second, talk about anything we've been watching, anything we've been playing. So, Andrew, my man, what have you been up to?
I actually, as far as watching anything goes, besides our main show that we're going to talk about today, I watched the new Resident Evil animated movie, Death Island. I believe that came out on the 25th. I watched it on Amazon. Check your Amazon inboxes if you use Amazon, because you get like a free credit. It was like $6, and then just to rent the movie was like $5.
Oh yeah, you were saying that. Okay.
So I'm like, oh cool, paid for, and so I just went ahead and watched
paid for,
and I actually really enjoyed it. It's the first time you actually see Jill in anything, which it's a little bit weird because this is after Resident Evil 5 where she's been brainwashed, but she goes back with her Resident Evil 3 remake modern like design. It looks good though. I thought the movie was cool. It's kind of cool seeing everybody in one place. I feel like that's maybe a little bit of a problem with the movie, is because you have so many big hitters that you're kind of trying to get what everyone's doing at the same time, or give everyone enough screen time and make sure. Obviously, you know they're not going to off anybody because they're all the main characters. But either way, it was just cool to kind of see them all in one place. And again, watching it, it showed some other like older flashback stuff. I'm like, man, I don't understand why they didn't do like a Netflix or whatever, like how they do these movies, or that other Netflix show that they had. I forget, it was something to Darkness. Why they don't just retell like 0, 1, 2, and 3 with these CGI models that they have from the game and stuff like that. The work's already done. The story's already done. Why don't you just do season 0, season 1? Like, that's what everybody kind of wants, is a good, maybe a little bit more fleshed out retelling of, you know, the OG events. I think that would be totally dope.
So what'd you give this? Like, is it a good adaptation? I mean, we're gonna be talking about, you know, IP adaptations in the media. Like, was this a good one?
I thought it was cool.
Are you biased because you're a big Resident Evil fan?
And it might be like, just it does have like the over the top action, does have horror, it has zombies. I'd give it like a 6 though. I mean, I'd watch it like once or twice. It's not anything like, man, like this is totally the way they need to do it. I would say like Mortal Kombat as that adaptation that we watched is above this. Okay, but it's a cool, fun watch.
Revenge or whatever.
Yeah, like it's a cool fun watch if you're into Resident Evil. I wouldn't say go out of your way to like buy it or anything like that. And as far as playing anything, I don't know if you've been on because you played it before, but Golf with Friends still on the Game Pass. I know we've talked about it before. I think they had like a big update recently, and lately my brothers and cousins have all been on, so we re-download it. Usually we have a full squad going. There's a couple new maps, but one of the other fun modes that you can do on there is, so we go in there. Collision was always on there before. I don't remember being able to change the shape of the ball, though. I don't remember that and either. That's been the big one for us, is because once you play that so much, you get good and you remember all the little secrets and trades and stuff. That now you can change the shape of the ball. So there's like a star one that sucks ass. A cylinder that literally, if you hit it on the cylinder side, it'll roll, but then it goes off to an angle. But then if you hit it, like let's say you need to go left and you're facing this way, it'll like topple over and flip because you're hitting that flat side of the cylinder. That there's like an egg, acorn. The worst one's the cube. You could be on the circle, like right here on the edge of it, and if you hit the cube too hard, it'll just flip over everywhere. Or sometimes you're hitting it and it just does one little roll, and you could be on the edge of the circle and it'll barely roll. So it's just hilarious, and it makes it a lot more fun because you don't know the physics of everything that you're using. And sometimes what'll end up happening is, like, if you have the cube cannot make a big gap that everyone will just have to take a 14-stroke penalty, or sometimes by the grace of God, maybe one person will get over there, and if they did bad on another hole, that'll be like the game-winning thing for them.
Does everybody have to play with the same ball?
You can do it to where you choose the ball, so we could be the acorn through the entire maps all the way 18. There's another option where you can choose it to be, it's a different ball every hole, and sometimes it'll be different sizes. So you'll get the golf ball, but it's like a bigger golf ball, so it's slower when you hit it. And then there's another option where you can do it to where everybody has individual things each time. So you might have a good one time and then get fucked on another one because you got, the square, the acorn, or something like that just doesn't roll. So it makes it really fun because it's a lot more challenging that you don't know what you're going to get versus, the golf ball. Once you're good at it, you're good at it.
Right, yeah. I'd have to, yeah. I know, I don't know if I have it still downloaded, but I would love to get back in it. That was a lot of fun. I remember playing.
I was like, jump in. We're having so much fun. So if you see us on, jump in. And then we'll talk about it a little bit later on too, been diving into Remnant too.
Yeah, we will get into that. That is a question coming up, so we'll save that one for the end. But as far as what I've been watching, I did a whole bunch of catching up on some shows. I love doing that sometimes, but like if I'm not in the mood to game, I'll just start picking up anything that I'm missing. And one of the things that I forgot came back on, I think Dante posted it in our Last Call Facebook group. Yeah. Harley Quinn Season 4 was coming back out, and that's what I kind of caught up on. I think there's 3 episodes out. It's on HBO Max. It came back on July 27th, which I'd have to double check it, but I think it's every Friday they'll do more episodes. It picks up right where it left off. I don't want to say anything, I guess, because I don't want to spoil it. But this is if you've never seen it, this is such a upside down version of all the characters that you think. Commissioner Gordon is a complete train wreck, dude. He's hilarious. Nightwing is like, he's got this fat ass, and he's so in love with it. But it's kind of more diving into, because I can't really avoid this part, because it's pretty much the cover of Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy's relationship. One of them is in like the Legion of Doom, and one of them is kind of going good. Guess who? And it's funny to see how they're working out like that dynamic. And I don't know, it's definitely, and I've said it before when we've mentioned it, it's not a show for kids. Like, it's an animated show, but this isn't Justice League. This isn't Batman the Animated Series. This is like a rated R. There's tons of swear words. There's tons of vulgarity. There's tons of nudes. Like, there's a whole episode where it's just about this crazy orgy in the last season, dude. It's insane. So that's what I've been watching. But I did want to shout out that, and Adrian and I were talking about it off camera, that I've been watching the new Futurama as well, which is on Hulu. I think there's only 2 new episodes out right now, but if you look at it, it's geared up for 5. So, and I've been falling asleep to Futurama lately. Like, such a great show. We were both saying how I still think Futurama overall is a better show than The Simpsons. So,
for sure,
if you haven't seen Futurama, check it out on Hulu. And if you're an old school fan of it, and I know you were saying you were nervous about the ending, but it does do a good job of why they're back into this universe. But yeah, it is one of the best finales of all time.
Yeah, so I personally haven't watched it, even though I love Futurama, because I thought Futurama had a perfect ending. It was so good, and I just wanted to leave it that way. So I don't know, maybe eventually I'll get into it. I think I'll wait for the season to come out though, because I'm finding more that I'm a binger and I do better binging shows. So if I watch an episode or 2, then sometimes I get busy and fall out, and then I don't know where I'm at where I come back. So it's usually just to binge watch something.
Yeah, and it's still funny. It's still really good stuff. So as far as what I've been playing, again, it's Remnant 2, and we'll dive more into that. But I was checking it out. I don't know, because our Xboxes are linked. I don't know if you downloaded it, but I saw that Disney Speedstorm, or maybe I did, and Disney Speedstorm is on Games with Gold. But right now, there's it's a free trial days right now, and it's a game that's developed by Gameloft, and it's on every system. So I just wanted to read this real quick. Disney Speedstorm is a free-to-play kart racing game developed by Gameloft Barcelona, and published by Gameloft. It features various Disney and Pixar characters racing vehicles on tracks themed after the worlds of their films and franchises. The game was released in a pay-for early access on 18th of April 2023 on all the platforms, and it leaves early access on September 28th. So I was kind of playing it like when I was getting show notes together. Sometimes I'll take a pause and I'll play something, and I didn't want to dive into something big, so I was just kind of racing around, and it's actually not too bad. I think most people are giving it like a 6 or 7. It's a decent kart racer. I've only played the first 2 chapters, which is kind of like more of a tutorial. I've played with Mickey and then Donald, but overall there's, I believe, 24 racers total, and the maps are all obviously themed after, whatever Disney or Pixar character it is, and I wanted to show you, I was doing the Hercules level. They've got really cool remixes of the song. So like it's got like the muses singing in the background, but it's got like a rock and roll kind of beat over it. So if you're interested in checking it out right now, it is you got some time trial to get through it. I don't know how much I would keep playing it. I mean, we all have Mario Kart, and I don't play that enough. And I don't know did we buy Crash Team Racing? So it's like, I don't know if Disney Speedstorm would be the next one I would get. But it's not bad. I mean, if you want to check it out.
Honestly, if they really put like something behind it, actually, I feel like that would be something that has the IP that could rival like that Mario Love, like a Disney kart that is almost like Mario Kart.
Yeah, does it have
powers and stuff?
Yeah, it's got powers. It's got drifting. One thing I was noticing, and I don't know if it's just because I'm early on, is that the stages and the tracks felt kind of short. But then I was thinking, I'm like, it's actually not bad, because sometimes I hate doing Mario Kart and like you're going on this long track and like you're still only on number 2, so
like Rainbow Road.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just because I'm early on, but I feel like I was cleaning up pretty quick. And then when you win, you actually get like upgrades. You'll get like new colors to your wheels, new tires, new things you could put on. So
I'll have to check
there
it
is
out.
some customization. If you want to check it out, it actually gives you a I don't know if it was 2,000 or 20,000, like an in-game currency that you can use to buy things. Because I guess they're already on Mickey coins. Like they're already on like season 2 or something like that. So if it's something you were looking at right now, you can check it out for free. So with that down and out of the way, guys, leave down below in the comments what you've been playing, what you've been watching, and if you've checked out anything Andrew and I have checked out, let us know your thoughts on that. So with that down, guys, let's move into our main topic, and that is about the Twisted Metal show, which was released on July 27th on Peacock. It has 10 episodes around the 22-minute mark. This is Sony's new adaptation. It's getting so far kind of mixed reviews, but overall I'd have to say I really enjoyed it. The reason why we took so long to record this one is we want to make sure we watch all 10 episodes. I'd probably give it like a solid 8. And again, before we dive into it, if you don't want to hear anything extra, we are going to be doing light spoilers. We're going to be covering a little bit about the characters, the plot line, and kind of the finale of what's going on with it. So I just wanted to read this to you guys real quick in case you're unfamiliar about it. It says, Twisted Metal is an American post-apocalyptic action comedy television series developed by Rhett Reese, Paul Wernick, and Michael Jonathan Smith, based on the vehicular combat video game franchise of the same name, published by Sony Interactive Entertainment. The series stars Anthony Mackie, Stephanie Beatrice, Joe Sanoa, Will Arnett, and Thomas Hayden Church. In a post-apocalyptic wasteland, John Doe, a talkative milkman with amnesia, is given a mission to traverse a desolate world to deliver a cryptic package. He faces a life-altering opportunity, but must confront ruthless marauders and deadly and destructive vehicles to secure a chance at a better future. So before we dive into all of that, I just want to say, Andrew, how did you end up liking the show? And I mean, was it surprising to you? Was it as good as you thought it was going to be? Worse than you thought it was going to be? Like, where do you stand on it? Before, and then we'll kind of dissect it.
I'll go a step further and say that I actually love the show.
Oh,
and I'd give it like a 9.
Oh,
like I loved it. Speaking of binge watch, I'm glad that all 10 episodes were out because I was able just to cruise right through it. Couldn't put it down. Watched it with Christina, and she loved the show too. She thought it was so good.
Yeah.
And I did not think it was going to be that good. I remember I probably talked about it on the show before. I'm like, it just sounds stupid. I don't really get how you could do, this big car battle thing with how it is they're going to do the show. I was super down on it. Man, like, I'm completely wrong. I'm so excited for the future of whatever it is that they're going to do that I'm fully on board. It was so good.
Nice. Yeah, I was watching it, and I think I started it without Deandra in the room. because that opening of it was a pretty solid opening. I loved how action packed it was, and I was like, you know what, I think she would like it. And I think when she came back in the room, I was kind of showing her a little bit of like what she missed, and then we ended up watching the whole thing together. So it was a show that captured her eye as well, and we ended up watching it. And I'm with you. I could see it getting a 9, but we got to now talk about kind of the mixed reviews it's getting. There's a lot of people out here giving it a 6, a 7, which is still a decent score, but a lot of people are pointing to 2 problems. One, that which I think is unfairly, is that they're comparing it to The Last of Us, which is another Sony IP. And I was like, you can't put those things on the same pedestal. They're saying like how in Last of Us there's this deep, character arcs, there's deep storytelling, there's this and that. I'm like, okay, but The Last of Us is that in a video game that is one of the best games of all time. Twisted Metal, like you were saying, we didn't know if it was going to be about a tournament race, destruction derby. Like, you know what I mean? They put together a story that's not based on really anything, and I gotta say, I thought it was done well. And then one of the other things they point out, and we can get into why we disagree, they were saying they didn't really care for Anthony Mackie being a comedic. They didn't really like his timing, and I was kind of looking through a couple of reviews, and again, there's people that say they loved it, but that was kind of one of the things I saw popping up the most. So I wanted to read this. This comes from RogerEberts.com, his own website, and this is just one small part. If you guys want to read the whole interview, you can. And they said, John Doe's mouthy, wisecracking personality best described as having Ryan Reynolds syndrome, fast-talking dialect, frantic movement, unfunny, crude dialogue, millennial references, loud screaming, and sarcasm. In other words, he's annoying. Anthony Mackie has endless charisma and tries to hold up the show with his screen presence, but so many of Doe's mannerisms and delivery style mimic Reynolds' comedic traits. Before Beatrice's quiet gets into Doe's car, it's Doe against the world using every Reynoldism in the bag. The show's try-hard edginess, courtesy of Deadpool writers Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick, executive producers here, makes every scene unbearable. So yeah, you do got to point out that the 2 guys that were making this, those 2 names, were also the guys behind Deadpool and Zombieland. So I will say, I think that's an unfair thing to compare. But how did you, we can start with characters. How did you think about Anthony Mackie being more of a comedic versus like in a Falcon?
I actually want to say before a little bit of that, I didn't even realize it was the dudes who did like Deadpool or something like that, because in my head I was thinking, I'm like, you know what, this is like, I remember talking to Christine, I'm like, this is almost like Zombieland, but obviously it without the zombies is like a completely different take, but I could see it being within that realm of whatever. So that's funny that those guys are in it. If you're going to critique him, I guess, whatever, I mean, everyone has their own taste, and maybe if, you are some, I don't know how old that guy is, 60, 70
or Roger Ebert. He's got to be. So
if you're like 70 years old, then sure, this might not be for you. But I totally thought he was fine. I thought it was funny. I thought his acting was perfectly fine, and his tone matched with what the show was supposed to be. And I completely, I don't understand anyone's criticism of saying too, like, oh, well, comparing it to The Last of Us, it's like trying to compare, like, that's the stupidest conversation I've ever heard. It'd be like, oh, well, I don't think Family Guy really stands on the legs because it's not as serious as Cowboy Bebop is, and the message.
Or The Sopranos or something.
Yeah, it's like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia isn't as good as Sopranos because it's not as serious, and the message they're trying to convey. It's 2 completely different tones that are going for different things. I don't think that you can compare a comedy to something that. A comedy with some serious elements to something that is just dead serious that's maybe happen to be like funny every now and then, but more lighthearted than trying to be funny.
Yeah, I was looking at Anthony Mackie, and I think I was telling you.
And I personally, I was gonna say, I personally before this, I was like, I don't really care for Anthony Mackie that much, and I can't really see him being a lead in a show that I'm gonna be like, oh man, that was something I was actually gonna be down on. I loved him. Yeah,
I was gonna say he reminded me a lot. And I don't mean it as any disrespect, as he came up as like a young Will Smith in like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yeah.
Is what I kind of got more out of it than trying to copy a Ryan Reynolds Deadpool. I got way more like Fresh Prince vibes.
And not in a negative way.
Yeah, not in a negative way at all. In a very positive way. So yeah, I disagree that that's what it lacked. I can see from someone's angle that that's maybe wasn't appealing to them, but I don't think it was the weakest thing. And again, I'm with you. I don't really know Mackie from anything else but Falcon and 8 Mile, so I didn't know what he was going to be like, and I thought he held his ground, and I thought he did carry the show.
I actually wrote this down in my notes soon. It's something I had asked you, and I'm like, I wonder if this show is going to resonate with non-90s people, because you and I obviously are both like 90s children. Mm-hmm. Like, even still, like the soundtrack, which is fire, is 90s. A lot of it's a 90s game, and a lot of the references, it's almost like that's where time stopped in this post-apocalyptic. So it's not 90s, but like it's like 2002 or something like that. So that's where time stopped, almost like like Fallout. Fallout's it's the year 2030, but it's still 1957 for the music and stuff like that. Yeah. Even Anthony Mackie, when he's taking off his shirt that he always wears is a High C shirt.
I want that goddamn shirt.
And everyone's loving it. Even Christina, the first thing she said, she's like, I want that shirt. And I was looking, I'm like, what does that say? I'm like, oh, hi. I'm like, man, that's such a cool shirt.
That was my old rapper name, baby. So I got to get that shirt.
And I'm like, man, like, yeah. Oh, does this resonate with people outside of that? And I didn't think, someone older or something like that, because you lived through the 90s, you would get it. I was almost wondering that from a perspective of, like, what if you were born in, like, 2010?
Yeah, because the show is, I believe, when the end of the world comes for them, it's 2002.
Not 2010,
and then it's 20 years later this thing takes place. So,
right.
I agree with you on that. So, as far as Anthony Mackie being John Doe in this, I could see if he wasn't your favorite character, but I definitely wouldn't say he was the weakest part of that at all.
No, I wouldn't even say he's unbearable. Like, at least you'd be like, you know what, he just didn't really hit for me. And I can understand that. But to say unbearable, get out of here.
Get out of town. So then I want to move into Stephanie Beatrice's role as the female protagonist in it, named Quiet. I've got to say, if you had to pick someone to be the weakest in the show, I would say it was her. She had way too many. She was just playing too many different characters. 1 minute she's the tough badass. 1 minute she's joking around. 1 minute she's falling in love. And so for me, I would say, nothing against the actress, the character of Quiet. And again, I don't want to say she was bad. She was just my least favorite character out of the main group. But her brother, whatever the brother's name is, who ends up dying in the beginning, and there's a flashback episode or something with him in it. I thought he was by far the worst, most annoying character I've ever seen in a show, ever.
I think he would be the worst in the show, yeah, because even...
I hated every mannerism, the way he talked. I hated his whole personality that made no sense compared to hers. I'm like, this guy's an idiot, but...
Except for the flashback episode, that's the only part of it.
When he's working at, like, the McDonald's or whatever?
Yeah, that's the only part of it I could stand, but, like, when
when he's not talking?
When she's, like, driving around and he's, like, talking, but it's kind of like... And again, I'm just going to say spoilers now, because we're
going to get into spoilers.
So, spoilers anyways, but yeah, when she's kind of, like... He's like, oh, I'm in your head. She's imagining him being there. I'm like, man, this is, like, kind of annoying.
Did they ever explain why he calls her Bunny Rabbit?
No, and it's just like out of nowhere, like that's your bunny.
Yeah, bunny. I'm like, okay, but so how do you just like Quiet though as a character in her role? I think it was cool to give him someone to pair up with and make the journey across country that he had to do. I just don't know if I liked this character being the one that was with him. But how did you feel different about her?
I thought she was okay. Like I don't think she was like anything, but yeah, I guess. Now that you describe it, it could come off more as like someone who's got like schizophrenia with like her different personalities and hopping from one moment to the next of, oh, I'm happy, now I'm mad, now I'm quiet again, now I'm this, now I'm that. I could get that, but I thought she was fine.
Okay, and then clearly the person that stole the show...
I hope we have the same answer.
...is Sweet Tooth.
Yes.
Yeah,
hands down.
Sweet Tooth is by far... And some people were giving it flack, too, when they showed the trailer and he beats his ass in the casino. A lot of people were like, man, this seems flat. They're doing this joke of Living La Vida... Or not... Was it Vida Loca?
No, it's Thong Song.
It was a Thong Song with Cisco, yeah. Because they referenced that. They're like, this is stupid. I'm like, dude, that is one of the funniest parts. And I would thought... Because, again, it's two different people doing Sweet Tooth. It's Joe Sanoa, who I believe is an AEW wrestler.
Samoa Joe.
And he's the body. And then, obviously, Will Arnett is doing the voice. I thought their link of how the voice reacted to his body movements.
Yes.
And I'm like, dude, he not only is perfect on this, this dimensional level. I'm like, but the character of what he did, the schizophrenia that he has, his background, when they do his origin story and he fucking rips that dog apart, I'm like, dude, he's awesome. So I think he's obviously the mascot of the Twisted Metal series. When you look at any of the old covers or the old games, right, it's always his ice cream truck that's kind of on the thing. Everyone knows the flaming clown head. So I think they nailed Sweet Tooth for a video game character that's actually in the games.
I think absolutely 10 out of 10. I don't know, unless you're talking like animated, but if we're talking like live action, I've never seen something I could deem a better adaptation of something. Like that's... I would put that above Joel and Ellie now. If you're talking out of 10, like that's pinnacle. He blows them out of the water. Like his performance, I would say, is better than Pedro Pascal's. Like it's
so on par. They click perfect together. His whole storyline was all you believe when he gets hit that something doesn't kind of hurt him. Like he just has that bull. That bull strength, and so I don't know. Is there anything else on Sweet Tooth? Because we'll get more into it when we get into the plot. But I thought he was perfect.
Yeah, no, I every scene that he's in, he absolutely steals the show. Especially when they do the flashbacks, his origins, just anything involving him is amazing. And I do want to note too, as far as one, that it's just we talked about before the soundtrack, just amazing sound design. When you hear like his little car and like in the credits and stuff, like that's the only thing that's playing is that haunting tune of his car. Yeah. I was like, that could be used for like a horror movie because the way that they've taken that tune of the wheels on the bus go round and round, like it's so haunting that it's so good that it gave me the feeling of almost. I think I've shown you before. The original Dead Space trailer when they use the Twinkle Twinkle Little Star and they take that tune and it's an absolutely like haunting, eerie as shit sound. That is like the new version of that.
Nice. Yeah, I loved everything that they did with Sweet Tooth. And then last but certainly not least was Thomas Hayden Church portraying Agent Stone, who is this guy, and we'll dive into more in the plot, who's kind of the lawman of this old, this Wild West of characters. And again, he's got a really cool origin story, too, of how he became this kind of hard ass. He is the guy that you don't want to cross. He is the guy that's trying to bring law and order to this, this crazy place of marauders and vagabonds and things like that. And acted extremely well. I always forget that Thomas Hayden Church is Billy from fucking Tombstone, who's, you're the drunk piano player. And, of course, he's obviously Sandman from Spider-Man. I thought he was perfect in this role. I thought it was the exact thing you needed. Like, what are you going to do to these characters who pretty much have no law and they're robbing from each other? Who can we throw in there that would make sense to counter that? Oh, let's put in this law guy who plays by his own rules, brands people for crossing their paths, gives them these horrible ultimatums if they want to live. And I thought he was a perfect counter antagonist to the protagonist, and I thought he was awesome. So how'd you feel about Agent Stone?
I loved him too. I thought he was like the perfect, I guess villain is maybe the wrong word to use.
Yeah, they're all
right and wrong is a perspective in this. So it just depends on which side of the gun. I like that too. When she says that later on, it's like power.
You're just holding the gun.
Yeah, there is no such thing as power or whatever. It's you're just the one holding the gun.
Yeah, that was good.
I'm like, no, that's like completely perfect and completely describes like everything about him. No, he's so good, and I do like his origin of like how he kind of rose to power and became this like bigger than life thing, and now it's trying to bring law to the lawless. And he just does, and he does it with absolute believability, and like there's no deviating from who he is as a person too. Because even after he makes someone commit something bad or suicide or something, have a good day now.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, he's so cool.
Chilling persona. And so those are kind of the main guys. If you want to dive into any more of these guys before we get into like the thing, I know. So Neve Campbell plays Raven, who's the mayor of New San Diego, wherever she's from.
New San
Francisco. Obviously, Stu is a character that plays kind of a very big secondary role. He kind of bounces around between a few of the groups. He's once under Agent Stone, and then he kind of almost teams up with John Doe for a second, and then he ends up going to the insanity of dealing with
the S brothers.
Yeah, the S brothers. So Stu was kind of cool. Was there anyone else I have them all kind of pulled up here. If you want, Jason, I always can't say his last name. Mantzoukas as the preacher.
I was gonna say preacher
as the holy man. He's Raph from the League, right? He's in all kinds of stuff, but dude, he was beyond hilarious. He's funny and everything. And then of course you have Chloe Fineman as Bloody Mary, who plays was she the ex-girlfriend of John Doe?
Something like that.
Yeah. So it's got a lot of crazy characters. Is there anything else you want to get into before we just kind of talk about how we thought about the story?
I was going to say, I think every person they run into is interesting, and you see people that maybe it's not in the way it's interpreted in the game, so like Flower Power's in there, and eventually you run into like Twister and stuff like that. And so I think there wasn't really a person that they ever ran into that I'm like, this guy's like really boring that I don't really care for. Everyone was interesting in their own way and kind of their philosophy of like how they're living. I think that was one of the bigger things too out of the characters is, you know, you have the lawmen and then you have these truckers that are just like modern nomads.
Yeah, the truckers were kind of cool to see. And I did want to point out, did you notice all the episode names were named after license plates?
Yeah, I was kind of trying to figure out some of them. I was talking to Christina. I was like, I don't really get what this one's supposed to be.
The beginning ones were kind of hard. So I know the first one is Will You Drive? The second one is Three Ring Circus.
See, I didn't get it. I couldn't figure it out. Law.
What was that one?
In the Law 1.
Not the Law. Oh, yeah, and the Law 1.
Oh, right? And
the Law 1.
They're all like pretty clever with like their little license plates. That some of them I didn't get that until right now. Me and Christina are trying to figure them out. And
and the Law 1. I'm pretty sure it's a quote in there. The fourth one was Who's There.
I fought the Law on the Law 1.
Yeah, and then 5 was Crossroads, 6 was Drive Through, 7 was Nut House, 8 is Evelyn, 9 is Roadkill, and then 10 was Shangri-La, which, make sure if you're watching this, you watch, I don't think there's a post-credit scene in any of the other episodes,
except for the last.
There is one for the finale. And I guess one character before we get into the storyline is we got to talk about the car Evelyn, right? This car, you know, obviously is his baby girl. It's what gets him from A to B. It's how he makes his life. It gets a few upgrades along the way. It gets some damage along the way. So how did you like that the car was kind of something that he... I guess in retrospect, you'd have to think that, who else would you talk to? Was kind of more of like a character to him than just being his ride around.
They totally turned the car like almost into a character as much as you go through with the show. And then they have one episode primarily kind of like focused on that. And I thought that was one of the best episodes. And it's like, how do you watch... It's crazy that I never think about, like, how do you see a car have a character arc?
Yeah.
How do you give an inanimate object like that
a character arc?
A character arc besides Harold the Bag.
Dude, Harold the Bag is another character that's Sweet Tooth. Dude, the funniest part is he's doing his show, and it's kind of painting the room, and he's got a cocktail next to him, and then he's done with the show, and it goes back to Harold, and the drink's gone.
Yeah.
Dude, I lost it when that happened. I had to rewind it and watch it again. I'm like, dude, that's hilarious. So
it's just, they not just take normal characters, but something like we were just saying, Harold the Bag or the car, like you give these inanimate objects just a life of their own. It's just like, I don't get it, but it works so good.
Nice. So let's kind of move into the story and just kind of see how we liked it overall. So 10 episodes, spreading it out. Each one kind of almost introduced a new person or a new element that they had to go do. The essential concept is that when he meets the mayor, Raven, she wants him to go pick up a package that's as far as, I believe it was Chicago, right? And then come back within 10 days. He's one of the only few, they call him milkmen, right? Because you make deliveries and to all these different outposts, because there's only good people living in the outpost and all the scumbags are on the outside. So his life is nothing but doing packages, and he's been the best in the business, at least as far as she's concerned. So the whole context of the story is him traveling to east to go to Chicago to pick up this package. Along the way is when you kind of see how quiet story happens. She starts off running into Agent Stone. Well, she tries to rob him, but that's kind of a quick scene. She runs into Agent Stone with her brother, and he gives them 2 guns and says, you guys can either both die or one of you can shoot yourselves and I'll let the other one live, but branded so you know not to cross the law. The brother ends up taking his life, and then her arc line is that she wants to get revenge on kill all of them, and then eventually they cross paths and become kind of this duo making it across country, and then from there kind of unfolds. So at its basis, what do you think of the plot line that they came up with for a story for a game IP that essentially had none?
I loved it, especially too because I was like, I don't know how you would make like a car tournament like be that interesting. But now that I've seen the layout of everything, I'm like, okay, this had like really kind of nothing to almost do with that. It was so good, like it made sense. Especially
it was fun to watch,
especially going through territory and just meeting all these crazy different people that are kind of like out there in the wasteland. I think more what I liked about the story and the stories that they showed is the weird, well not weird, but same that social status where you have the people of New San Francisco, New Chicago, and then you have the outcasts that are outside that are just pretty much homeless like vagrant people, but then you have the nomads, you have the law bringing law to the lawless, you have the preachers that are almost like a cult, you have people that are just robbing people trying to get by, and then you have almost like where Quiet comes from, it's called the OC, I'm assuming it just stands for Orange County, where these people essentially have like what are slaves, and they're wearing like their body parts as like pieces of jewelry to show off like your status in the world. And I'm like, man, like I think that's even better than anything that could have been conveyed before, like the social hierarchy, that even when the world's falling to shit, you still have these people that believe in like elitism and they're worse than ever.
Yeah, and I think it did a really good job, I think, of unfolding the story. My only kind of, I guess maybe question would be, do you think some of it was a little too fast? Do you think they kind of glossed over a few things, especially when you think like Bloody Mary? Like, we just kind of got a quick synopsis that, okay, they used to travel together and she gets extremely jealous now that she knows that John is actually riding with Quiet. I mean, do you think they crossed over anything a little too fast at all? Even the truckers, like when they go and meet, that's why I want to pull this up so I can see the Amber, the chick that was out there doing the medicinal stuff and ties them up and she's like making them burn. It's like, I kind of wanted to know why she was there, but at the same time, you didn't really need it because I did want it to keep going. So it did keep a pedal to the metal kind of pace, but at the same time I'm almost wondering if maybe we missed on some things, or maybe they are holding something back for a season 2 if we get it.
I would say, I think what would be cool is if they almost did like a Spartacus, like season 1 is this, season 0 you could see some of these people that were in season 1 like kind of dealing and coming up in their own ways. I don't blame them for going too fast because, you know, you and me weren't really hyped for the show. We're like, we'll just watch it and see how good it. No one knew it was going to be this good. Yeah. I didn't anticipate it to be this good. But I totally understand them. Like, let's just do what we're going to do, and then maybe we can worry about some of that stuff later. And I think that would be the perfect thing. Retroactively, we could do an in-between season 2 or a season 3, or while we're figuring out the future of this show and season 3 is filming, we could do a season 0 essentially, where you see Flower Power, how the truckers come to their thing, Preacher starting the cult, and all these, you know, Agent Stone, you do kind of see him come into power, but, you know, get more of that. Maybe Sweet Tooth's rise to how he ended up ruling over Vegas and stuff like that.
Awesome.
I think that would be a perfect season 2 as a 0, and then go into the next thing.
That'd be kind of cool. And the other thing I wanted to kind of look at was, like, so obviously one of the main kind of things is that John has amnesia, right? And you learn how down the line of how he got it, but it's this kind of thing where his goal is to, the reason why he's making this run for Raven is because she's offering him a home in this new, was it San, I was getting mixed up. New San Francisco, right? Because as he can't remember where he's from, that's why he's called John Doe. He doesn't remember his name. All he has is this one picture of his family's kind of cut out, which I never noticed there was the sister in the back until the very end.
I didn't notice that
you
either.
kind of do a close up of the picture. So how'd you like his kind of arc being this guy that doesn't remember his past, doesn't know where he's from, and it's kind of, you know, the fruit that's dangling in front of him is, you know, this kind of new home, and at the very end of the show you find out that Raven knows exactly who he is, knows who his parents were, knows who his sister was. So how'd you like that kind of being fit into this?
I actually really liked it, especially because it had like a really good resolution at the end where he's like, you know what, I found my home out there that I don't really care anymore. Like, you know, my home is out there. I don't care about like any of this or living in peace. Like, I found my friends and family in another place that wasn't what I was looking for. So I felt like that was perfectly fine, especially too because it set up the idea of especially why he would take such a mission like this that doesn't make sense, because that's his whole big driving force is like, you know, that's their thing. Milkmen have an expiration date.
Yeah, I love that line. Yeah, so I'm not sure too much more if we want to go into the spoilers. Do you want to talk about anything else? Do you want to get into like kind of how they're setting up for season 2?
I guess we'll just end with season 2 and go from there.
Okay, so from there at the end, it shows that, you know, at the end, when he completes his package, obviously that's what the show is based about. And they end it with, now they're going to actually, Twisted Metal 2 will actually be what seems to be this Destruction Derby like tournament. And when it starts kind of showing you the bracket tournament that they're kind of setting up, and it starts showing you the pictures, and some of the faces are people that you've met in the show, I was like, man, they couldn't have ended this. I was so hyped because I was telling Andrew, I'm like, dude, let me know, because I finished it a little bit before him. I'm like, let me know when you finish that episode, because you've got to watch that ending and tell me that's not awesome, that at the end it ended with this kind of Twisted Metal tournament setup. And I'm like, you couldn't have done it any better. And I'm hoping against hope that it actually gets a season 2, because time's going to tell with how many people watched it, how many of the overall reviews are going to be. I really hope it gets a number 2, and if it does, I think it's going in the perfect direction, really the only direction.
I didn't even see that ending coming, that it would be a tournament. I thought it was just going to be more of, hey, we're living in this world, whatever. And before, I was almost down on like, well, how could you make a tournament out of the show, this and that? Now, it's so good, especially when you're watching this, all the car play, all the gun play, people being in and out of their cars, everything just makes sense, that I'm totally 100% on board for this big tournament.
Yeah, nice, guys. So, we won't dive too much more into it. Definitely check it out for yourself. It is on Peacock. All the episodes dropped at once. Was there something else you want to point out?
I was going to say, I do want to see, hopefully, once kind of the dust settles on this thing, I hope this is one of those shows where, like, viewer ratings and people like us who, like, aren't, like, critics and have to put on our hat to, like, watch it or whatever, that I wonder if this is going to be one of those other things where, you know, the reviews for it by people who watch it are way higher than, like, the critical reviews.
Right. Well, let me ask you one more thing before we go. Do you think this was a good move for Sony? And, I mean, does it excite you for any more of their projects that maybe you could have had a question mark behind, like how Horizon's going to do? So now we've seen them tackle The Last of Us with hardcore drama. We've seen them do Twisted Metal, which is kind of action comedy. I've liked them both. Do you think Sony's moving in the right direction? And, I mean, is your kind of any doubt against them gone? And do you think picking different streaming services is the right way to go? Do you think Peacock was the right place to put a Twisted Metal?
Dude, this almost didn't even say, like, I felt like there was like a HBO production on this. Yeah. Like, it was that good that, no, they could go with different people. And any doubts I had, I mean, I think they really kind of had, like, nothing to lose, but I guess everything to gain from how good this could be. Because if you put it out, you're like, oh, it's just Twisted Metal. What could you have really done with it? But no, show me that you took something like Twisted Metal and made it into what I'd call this, like, big phenom of a show. I'm like, damn, like, I won't even question any of your decisions again. You could make one about fucking Crash Bandicoot, and I'll be like, all right, I'll see it when it comes out, and I'll be hyped, I guess.
Nice. So, guys, if you've been watching it, leave your thoughts down below. Hopefully we didn't spoil too much of it, but you can't really talk about this show and gush about it unless you kind of pick apart what was gushable. So, thank you guys, and leave your comments down below. So, let's move into questions of the week. Now, we had 2, but I think we're just going to do the one today because I know you've got somewhere to be. And I guess we went longer than I thought we were going to be on Twisted Metal, but it's a good show. So we'll do Joel B's today, and we'll do Jamie T's for the next episode we do. So, guys, if you want to submit questions to the show, you can do so several different ways. You can leave them in the comments down below in the YouTube section. You guys can email us at lastcallproductions@gmail.com, or you guys can find me on social media at Craig Perales, and I can take it there. So, the first question comes from, or the only question today comes from Joel B, and he writes, I watched your episode about games to keep your eyes on for 2023. That was a good episode. You guys should watch it. And notice no one mentioned Remnant 2. That game is amazing, and I'm curious if you guys have played it yet, and thoughts on Game of the Year, pretty much potential. Thanks. So, yeah, the reason why... So, Andrew and I have been playing this, and that's why we wanted to save it to answer your question, Joel. Originally turned on to us by Devin Collins, friend of the show, who was gushing about it as well. Andrew and I kind of looked at it. It definitely caught our eye. And one of the things I wanted to point out is that Remnant is a third-person shooter action role-playing game developed by Gunfire Games and published by Gearbox Publishing. It's a sequel to Remnant from the Ashes and is released on pretty much all the big systems of July 25th, 2023. Now, a lot of people are calling it Souls-like, and I kind of wanted to get your take on if you agree with that. But it's got really tight mechanics. It's a fun game. We'll kind of dive more into that in a minute. But I know as someone that plays a lot of Souls-like games, is that based on like that it's hard, or is it more that like it resets enemies and there's like kind of long distant checkpoint kind of thing? Do you think Souls-like is something that's being thrown around too much about games that I guess are kind of hard, or where would you rank this as a Souls-like, if so at all? And then we can kind of dive into the game.
I think this game does definitely fit into the... Usually what I define as like a Souls-like is something that is challenging, and when you die, you do get set back to like kind of a certain checkpoint no matter how
you don't just restart the boss with halfway health or something.
Yeah, that you have to restart, fight whatever it is along the way. I feel like those maybe kind of are the 2 biggest things, that and maybe just being this big kind of open world area with... I mean, you can have some sort of direction, but again, it's just all about the exploration. I think that's kind of really the big 3 for me. And I think this definitely falls into that category. I'm liking it. I mean, it's cool. I don't think this thing compares that. I mean, people would give it a 9. For me, so far, I wouldn't even put it close to there. I don't think this touches Elden Ring or even the worst Dark Souls at all. So
well, because this game actually has a difficulty level. Those games don't, right?
No.
So would that change anything?
They have a difficulty level in a way of like after you beat the game, you get the new game plus. So if you want the harder difficulties, it's like that. Whereas this, you can get it like right off the bat. I mean, I think even on the easiest mode, it's still like challenging, and it might depend like too because it is a random generated world that you'll get. Like you can have a world and it's like 2 different paths. So the first one I got seemed like it was a lot harder than what you got. That I was kind of stuck on it. That I'm like, dude, this is just not fun for me because this place is like a slog and I'm getting my ass kicked. Whereas you're like, oh no, I cruised through this area, and I mean, you saw what I was facing. That I do feel that what I had was way more challenging than what you had for your first world.
So with that being said, when you start your world, you're gonna get one of 3 different places to start, and coincidentally enough, I started. I forget all their names. I started the one. Do you remember them all?
Losum.
I started in Losum. Andrew started in
Nerud.
And then Colin started in, do you remember the forest?
Yesha.
How do you remember all this? Because they're all such weird names. And I remember because I was talking to Andrew, I'm like, oh yeah, like, hit me up when you get to the part with like the castle. And he's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like there is, and I was talking to Devin too, I'm like, I'm in a forest, and he's like, I'm fighting robots. I was like, oh, and I don't know if that's a thing in number 1, but I love the fact that this game can start you off with a different beginning. I would say that the one you started with was by far the one, my least favorite. The other 2 I thought were kind of cool. I would say that the first world, it definitely starts harder because I was getting my ass kicked by the end boss until I went and like kind of upgraded, because it's not really so much leveling up that's going to give you a lot of benefits. It's more upgrading your weapons and getting these traits. So with that being said, I want to say that this game has a cool kind of what would you say, like a cool trait to it, that the game itself can start different for everybody. And then with that being said, you can get different versions of that world. So even if Andrew and I did start off on Losum, is Losum?
Yeah.
The same one, like we could have different locations that we went to, because like in one of the ones I had a big clock tower that I had to go to, and when I was talking to Devin about it, like I don't think he even had that in his world. So I'm like, cool, there's different things to do, and then
different bosses.
Yeah, and then you realize that you can re-roll these maps to get different bosses and different challenges and different gear, because one of the, I guess, the cool replayability about it is that you're not going to beat everything on the first try at all. You're going to have to replay different worlds X amount of times to run into everybody if you're trying to collect everything. So I think it does have a really cool, unique feature. I don't know if you could do that in number 1, but when I was playing it, I'm like, the more you're understanding it, I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. Me and Andrew just beat the same kind of world. He had a whole different boss than I had. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So it's really comparing notes instead of just going, oh, how did you fight this guy? It's like, no, I had this guy and I did this. And so I don't know. I thought that was one of its best-selling features.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. Like, it is really cool. I just don't know that it's resonating so much with me, especially compared to, again, I have, maybe it's because you haven't done so much of the other ones, that I already have this pedestal of what a game like that should be. And so it's just not kind of reaching it for me.
How did you like all the different class systems? Because one of the cool things I do like, the reason that drew me to this game is I like builds. I like putting in my gear. I like collecting things. I know one of the biggest downfalls that Andrew was pointing out to me is that there's not enough gear to find. And I kind of feel the same way. Like there's only so much I can do unless I'm physically buying it or upgrading it to something. But like you can start off, there's a couple different classes to start with. I chose the handler, which is the guy that has the dog that can revive you. And then I found my second class, which you can get buying them from vendors, but there's also secret archetypes that you can find. And I found the summoner. So I think it's a really cool concept that you can combine these different archetypes to kind of make something. And then the more you have unlocked, you can switch them really at any time. So I thought it has everything going for it that I love. But as far as your Game of the Year conversation, again, I have to beat the boss to see maybe if it blows my mind. And it's like you were saying with Zelda, the ending was like amazing. But as of right now, I don't know if it would crack my top 5, especially when, there's still like Baldur's Gate coming out, Starfield coming out, Spider-Man 2 coming out. I don't know where I would rank it yet. But, you don't see it cracking yours?
No, I don't think so. Because I feel like the exploration kind of almost isn't, like, really worth it, too. Because, again, we've been exploring. We did all those nooks and crannies and everything. And I didn't find any new armor, any new weapons. I found, like, 10 rings. And
I've got a shitload of rings.
And, like, those fragments. And it seems like that's mostly what you're finding. I'm like, okay, well, I kind of want, like, a different weapon than the shotgun that I don't want to have to go buy something, and I'm searching everywhere, and all I have is like either the Magnum or the machine pistol. So it's like whereas I feel like when I play other games that are like this, like Dark Souls or whatever, you can find long swords, great swords, short swords. You can use your hand, whips, bows. You're finding a lot of your staffs for magic that you're finding a lot of these different things that you could really experiment with. Or I feel like I'm just using the same thing because I'm not finding anything else, and I don't want to waste my money and scrap on something
and
then it not be good, or I find something else that I want to upgrade more, and now I just wasted my money on something else.
Yeah, so if you guys haven't checked it out and you're interested in it, just keep that in mind. This isn't going to be a loot drop game. You're going to have to either be buying it. But I would say other than that, if that doesn't bug you, because I know Andrew, that's one of the things he dislikes about it, I'm kind of finding it annoying. But if that doesn't bother you at all, there's a lot to play. There's multiple ways to play it. There's a ton of different things to find, and it's got a really interesting combat system. So I would say if that catches your eye, check it out. But yeah, as far as game of the year, I know that Collins loves it. I think it's up on his 5 for sure already. But as far as us going, I don't think it's going to crack mine. But it was a good game, and it's worth checking out. And I'm on the final world right now, so I should have it hopefully done by the time we do our next episode. And maybe my mind will change. So you think I'll have it done by then?
Yeah, hopefully. I as long as we play together, I have more fun playing together than by myself with this. Whereas Dark Souls and Elden Ring, I get lost by myself. I do want to note too. I guess a big positive for this game is it was only like $50.
Yeah, and then you share Xboxes, you split it. It's not bad.
Yeah, instead of 60 or 70, so it was like 49. So I was like, oh well, that's cool.
Hey, that's not bad. So guys, that is the end of episode 174. Guys, join us for the next episode of 175. So until next time, guys, my name is Craig Perales. That is Mandrew Montemayor, and cheers.
See ya.